here, yes.
No. Right. I'm obviously not Carl.
No.
Bobb from Waivers Services Bureau. And for those of you who may not be aware, I oversee WIA, trade, and about 8 other statewide programs. So my knowledge really is wide and not as deep. And because of that, I brought 2 subject matter experts with me. Leslie Snaptree has overseen our land conversion grant for 3 years and is now a workforce coordinator. And she is going to be available to answer questions about one of the waivers. And Michaela Moore-Yoter is our performance guru, because performance can be very, very complicated. So wanted to talk a little bit about the waivers that we would like to submit to DOL. You hopefully got those sent to you about a month ago at the same time that they were put on the state website for comment. Now, I have checked with Carol. She has not gotten any comment on the waivers, so apparently there's no objection out there to these. The waivers that I'm going to talk about are somewhat intertwined, or they, the reason for them is related. I think the first thing that I want to talk about, just give you a little overview, is the provision of incentive funds to local regions. Now, in the past, our incentive funds came from 15% of our set-aside of formula funds. Recently, the federal government changed that so that 10% of that 15% automatically goes out in formula funds to the local regions, and it leaves 5% at the state level. Well, as you can imagine, we still have needs at the state level to provide IT support and performance reports and lots of different things with that 5%. So basically the waiver for the incentive funds is so that we are covering those basic needs at the state level and don't have to dip into those for incentive. And it's kind of a moot point because the incentive is already going out to the regions. So it's no loss to them. The next waiver that I wanted to talk about is about common measures, and if I called her on this, I'm glad Michaela's here. Common measures is kind of a complex issue. We have been, over the course of several years, gently encouraged by DOL to move towards common measures. Originally, we were called upon to report 17 measures to the federal government, and common measures was introduced as a way to reduce those to 9 measures, and also create the possibility of apples and apples and oranges across federal programs such as VETs and other things that are related to ours. Currently, there's 42 states that already are in common measures, and because the only real reason not to go to common measures has been eliminated, because the common measures, the reason why we didn't go to that earlier was because of the incentive funds, and going to common measures jeopardized our ability to get those incentive funds for the local areas. So we're probably going to end up with a win-win here on common measures, because it's going to help our integration efforts, and it's going to please DOL, and it's going to enable us to work with other federal programs to create some consistency in reporting and accuracy. The final one, the final waiver is for dislocated worker formula funds and state rapid response funds. We'd like to take some of those funds that we realize we have, I won't say in excess, that would be no. They're not utilized or haven't been utilized. And we would like to create additional incumbent worker training. And through the course of our grant that Leslie worked on, we came to find that incumbent worker training was something that employers really liked. It was something that was very helpful. And basically we ran out of money before we ran out of a need. So in looking at some supplemental funds that we have in these two particular pots, we would like to be able to send this money as well out to the field so that it can be put towards incumbent worker training. And basically, those of you who may not be familiar with incumbent worker training, it is in the case of a layoff situation, we would work with those workers to get some retraining while they are employed, so that they would be employable by other entities once the layoff occurs. So it's sort of a preventative. So that's kind of an overview of our waivers. We would be glad to answer any questions you have. We're looking for your support in submitting these.
Can you help me with the dislocated worker money that you want to move from over to incumbent? Can you move it back? When I'm looking at his need basis, because before the DOL, we'll get to my favorite topic of negotiated performance rates. Their definition of negotiation and mine are totally different. But so sometimes we were able to move money between youth or dislocated worker or adult, but the caveat was you couldn't move it back. So is that still the same, or is that part of the waiver?
The dollars that we're looking at is in each of the regions, the money that has been set aside for dislocated workers. What we're suggesting to them is they entertain that 10% of their budget be utilized for incumbent workers. And how we would present that to the regions is that we're actually going to be working with employers who have developed a training plan for their workers to ensure that their business continues to be viable, and or for those businesses that may actually have already made a decision to close or relocate, that some of these dollars would then be able to be used for those employees, just like we're talking about. To answer your question, I guess that's really a Kelly question.
Well, but when you, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
When we submit the waiver,
Right.
does DOL, from your relationships with DOL, do they see this as just a one-way move, and should next year we need to keep the money into the youth program perhaps, rather than moving it to dislocated worker? Do we have the flexibility to meet the needs of what's out there by adding dislocated worker into this kind of triumvirate of services for the money? So we're not redefining. At the end of the day, you can't move it back if you have another need for rapid response or something like that.
Actually, before we decided to go in this direction, we made sure that this wasn't money that was going to be used either way. This is unspent funds in the region. And so the dislocated worker formula funds that have been unused this year, it won't affect next year, this waiver.
Okay,
So,
then I heard a magic phrase, 10%. And there's always been the 10% window across the programs. It was somewhat flexible anyway. I think the waivers are great too if they move forward. Our webs are struggling to have some relevance right now. And I think the more control we can give to the regional boards, the better. And finally, negotiated performance rates. I want to cry. I mean, there's no negotiation. They send you a sheet of paper, and here's what we negotiated for you. So when you say thank you, sir, may I please have some more? But is there any change in that in the waivers that we actually negotiate our performance measures for dislocated workers, for adults, and our youth programs?
We've already negotiated our performance levels down with integration so that they're, I would say, more reasonable and more in line with other states, what other states are experiencing with, you know, the economic downfall.
Because the performance rates for the youth program were higher than you would see from high school valedictorian.
Absolutely.
So then when you have a targeted population that has some more challenges, some of those numbers are kind of ridiculous. And I think, you know, the age-old phrase, are you creaming, that we need to serve more and then have more successes and increase that denominator.
You're right, and the literacy numeracy part of our performance reporting was the trigger. When they removed that from incentive, then literacy numeracy became a non-issue. So that was.
If we get rid of the credential requirement on the job training agreements, I think that'll open a few doors also.
Absolutely.
This common measure waiver really gives us a lot of flexibility that we don't have today. And actually, DOL has been saying, you know, you'd be doing much better on a lot of things if you would have common measures other than the system that you're on now. So they have been suggesting this to us because they also want us to be able to have more money and more flexibility along the way.
So does this 10% per region, is that roughly 20,000 per region?
No, I mean, it's different per region. It's
Okay.
the money that we're taking for the incumbent worker is money they didn't spend.
Right, 314,000 across the system, right?
No, the 314,000 is what we actually utilized out of the 3-year project, the demonstration project. We had received a grant in July of 2008 for about $1.9 million.
Okay.
And as we looked at that demonstration project and wanted to test a variety of employer services, incumbent worker, business retention and expansion, a variety of economic development kinds of indicators, we set aside about $340,000 for employer incumbent worker training. So that incumbent worker training that you're seeing in that initial paragraph is where we actually worked with different employers who came to us and said, we are threatened with a closure or a layoff. How could we participate with you to train our workers? And so those employers, and Vermeer would have been one of those, actually came up with a training plan for their workers that we worked right along with them hand in hand in order to keep folks working. And we had, Vermeer is very large, and then we had some very, very small employers that we also would have lost for various circumstances. So the incumbent worker training at this point is really designed around an application from the employer telling us what would make more sense. And we've done some of that through customized training under WIA before. This is really giving that Regional Workforce Investment Board an opportunity to do even more with their employers, to get in touch with the economic development, their labor market, their own skill shed, to say, okay, employers, how might we be able to assist you in meeting your needs, in addition to how we're meeting those individual dislocated workers and or adults that actually come to the one-stops. So it's actually a very economic development driven initiative there are only a few states across the nation who have actually implemented incumbent waivers, and it's happening more and more, some with greater success. I believe in Iowa you will see a lot of employers really approach their workforce investment boards to be a part of this initiative.
How many employees do that 7 employers represent? I mean, how many people is it?
We actually, just off the top of my head, and I can certainly get that for you, but with Vermeer, we actually had about 125 individuals. We worked with a food production company down in the very southern part, southeastern part. We had about 34 individuals that went through that one. Our very smallest employer, there were 10 individuals that went through some new OSHA crane operator training for a very unique kind of construction. So there were probably, if I was to guess, probably right about that 200. So in training plans, cost a variety. I think the neat thing for me as we watched is that those employers were also very interested in establishing a baseline and a credential, for their folks. It was one of the things that we worked with the National Association of Manufacturers. We were working with the National Association of Construction workers to look at various certifications that these employees might obtain, and then be able to be a card-carrying member and move that certification through their career, whether they were with that employer or not, several years down the road.
So
In
how
terms
many
of that
dollars?
skills delivery, is that a partnership with community colleges and other ways to deliver those skills, or you have to create that within the agency?
The employer actually gets to determine where that training provider might best serve their needs. I can tell you, however, that through the demonstration project, most of our services were coming through the community college, and or they were coming through the National Association of Manufacturers. So definitely tying it right into what some of Director Whaler's partnerships and initiatives are. So yeah.
How many dollars are we talking about spending? I heard the 10% number. I still own 10% of what? The 1.6 million that was left from the original grant? I mean,
Actually, I'm hoping that it is actually higher than that. So we were really looking at, maybe there being 300 to 500,000, but I'm speaking right off the top of, that would definitely be a Carol, Barb, and Lori. And I'm not positive, to tell you the truth, that we actually stated a number. The way I understood the waiver is that not only did we have these underutilized funds that would be available to us out of the state rapid response fund that we have currently, but that we would actually be, as we were allocating to each of the 15 regions with the implementation of this waiver and each year following, is that they would be able to take their dislocated budget. And so in central Iowa right now, that's about $500,000, $600,000, just roughly. Lori, I'm looking at you, but right about that. We would be asking them to consider 10% of that budget that they would utilize this next year with an employer incumbent worker training. That's my vision. That's my understanding from as Carol really visited and developed the waiver. So we have some state rapid response money
And
that we want to utilize. That's
that was
the big
about
part.
900,000
Right.
from the rapid response that hadn't been utilized. And basically that happens because we're so quick at getting NEGs, National Emergency Grants, that we're able to repay that fund very quickly. And so we ended up with a surplus this year that Kelly came to us and said, what are we going to do with it? So this was one of the ideas we came up with.
Barb, I was going to say, just in the last couple of weeks, I've had several conversations with other state employment initiative programs. There seems to be a lot of collaborative effort going towards the common measures. So I just echo your comments. We're just right on target with what I've been hearing in the last couple of weeks.
Does this do away with the customer service survey?
Well,
Can we
it's
still do
not,
it? And
yes.
can we still do it, but not have it as a performance measure?
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
And obviously you heard already this morning, we're doing some customer
Some of it.
service surveying, but it won't be required as part of.
Does NEG still have the 50 baseline requirement? Right off of 50?
Yes.
minimum?
Yes.
Francis, what's the issue that these dislocated worker funds and the rapid response funds are not being expended?
They are being expended, but what happens is throughout the year, when there is a layoff, when there is a dislocation, our team puts together a national emergency grant, which then provides us with a larger funding stream, and we're able to repay or put the funds back into rapid response for future needs. And so we had so many of those that we had a surplus in the rapid response that we felt we could utilize in other ways.
Okay. Was that Carol?
It's Barb.
Barbara.
Did I hear Carol say before that this would be for the one fiscal year, upcoming fiscal year only?
Actually, we aren't going to be able to estimate what we might have left over in the rapid response funds in future years, but this gives us some leeway, and it gives us some discretion, as Leslie said, with the locals, giving them a little more incentive to put some of their funds towards incoming worker programming.
But we would not have to file every year
No.
a waiver. Once we do that this time, then the flexibility has been established.
Right.
Okay, I think I understand that.
Just a question. I see why you'd want to do the common measures and working in the system also. You know, we did all that co-enrollment. You know, you had dislocated workers, you had, you know, people with disabilities, you know, we had dislocated homemakers. So you had all the categories. And so then you had to always line up, you know, what their entered employment rate was, if they did that, how long they've been working, what kind of services delivered, and, you know, there was a lot of shuffling around. So I concur that I could understand why you'd want to do the common measures, but what I don't really understand what they are. I mean, are they basically the same measurements, but we're dealing in a common pool? Or are they measurements that we don't do anymore, like Representative Jacoby said, you know, you don't have to do the customer surveys. So do you have a list of what, you know, handy that can be sent to us that would give me what the current measures would be and what the common measures
Yes.
will be?
Yes.
So you got a better idea of what we're saying
Yes.
we're getting rid of.
Yes.
The common measures would be adult dislocated worker entered employment, adult dislocated worker retention, adult dislocated worker earnings change, youth
That's on these
placement.
sheets here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Youth placement in employment or education, youth attainment of a degree or certificate, youth literacy and numeracy gains.
Okay, so, but my question was, what are you, so you're only with adult dislocated workers, you only look at entered employment and worker change, that's how you're looking. So we're not keeping track of all the other things that we used to.
Ironically, we do still keep track.
We don't
keep track,
record it.
But
We
we're
don't
not,
have to report
we're not
it.
required to report it, and therefore, they can't ding us for not hitting.
Yeah, because you
certain
had to hit a
levels.
certain level
Right.
in order to meet your
Right.
performance, because
Correct.
what we used to do at the end of every time we had to report, the staff had come, you know, upwards
Correct.
and said, go back through your files and see who you can enroll.
Because we gotta
So
get
we're
a
low
certain
over
level.
here,
That's right.
and let's re-enroll them in that place so we
Right.
can
Right.
mess with and you spend most of your time doing
Right.
that instead of working with
Correct,
clients.
correct.
Okay, so
That's the common measure.
all right. But still send me the code section
Sure.
or the administrative,
Sure.
so I can see
We will.
what was in
We'll
each
send you
one.
what we have today and what we want to have.
Thank you.
To elaborate on that a little bit, the adult and dislocated worker have three measures that we've been held to, and then the fourth one we've just reported on, and that's entered employment, retention, and average wage. That's for adults and dislocated workers, so that's 6 of the 9. For youth, the 3 new ones are not really new, but some of them change the definition a little bit from what we've been doing, but they are, first on those.
See, even the expert has to look.
Well, that's all right, we'll get you the information, that's okay.
The 3 new ones are the placement in employment and education, degree or certificate attainment, which is similar to the younger youth diplomas. And then the literacy numeracy gains is the last one. And that's the most different of all of them. But the first 2 are similar to what we've been doing. But what they do is they remove the older and younger youth distinction, that because between older youth and younger youth, there were 7 performance measures. Now they put them together, and there's more of a distinction between in-school youth and out-of-school youth, is what those measures do.
So you looking for board
Yes,
recommendation
we need
today?
to take a vote.
Well, I tell the board members I'd recommend they support this.
Thank you.
All 3?
Can I just got a couple things. I've heard mentioned, we go through the community colleges and the associate. Are we doing anything to the DOL with like careers apprenticeship program? Are we connected in there any way?
That one is connected under the youth measures.
Okay.
How about the worker training?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the incumbent worker training. Are we doing anything to the apprenticeship DOL?
I don't know, it's fine.
Yeah,
Like I said, the
Well,
need
yes,
is
why not?
huge.
Right. And it came up this morning at the Central Iowa Planning and Operations. So we have a on-the-job training national emergency grant right now where that has given us some additional opportunity for employer services. That is starting to end. So some of those labor representatives are definitely saying, well, how would this tie in and how could we collaborate with the apprenticeship? So once we have the opportunity for the waiver, then I believe we'll be able to sit down. We're almost got, some different categories to be able to look at how might we then work with a variety of employers and what would be the advantages of the apprenticeship, and maybe then how could we support them in an incumbent worker. So it would work very closely tandem and could work very closely. So.
Because it can be included.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was one of the suggestions in the couple of maybe workforce board back was that would incorporate registered apprenticeship. And I guess the has never gotten back to that subject on that. So, but I notice it's again, very invisible in these comments.
It's because we leave the plans up to the employer. So the employer lets us know what's necessary. We don't design them ourselves.
But wouldn't that be, then I should say that in there, wouldn't that be beneficial to actually have the work registered apprenticeship so that they know that's an option, because it has always not been an option?
Yeah, it totally
Sure.
is. Yeah.
And I think that's part of the education with regional workforce investment boards, is to help them better understand their connection to economic development and to their employer services, and to understand the variety of options that are there for workers and employers. Because right now, there are several boards across the state who are really looking at how can we best utilize our dollars that continue to go up and down. And so they're really looking at those high demand, high skilled occupations. And so just even as a matter of conversation this morning is construction's running a little tough, but that's where a lot of these registered apprenticeship opportunities are, as far as employers and training and getting a paycheck of somewhat. But we also know that construction right now in our economy is kind of tough to hang on to employees. And so that's one of the things that some of the union have been mentioning as well. These folks right now are laid off, and so are we still considering that as a temporary layoff. There's just a lot of things that I believe the regional workforce investment boards need additional information on as they look at whether or not they want to utilize part of their funding.
So our job, if we pass this, our job, when we communicate the waiver to the investment boards, is to specifically mention the apprenticeship program, so that to your point,
Right.
you know, we have been a little uncommunicative about that. So that's the least we can do with these waivers, since that does apply, that we can specifically point that out.
And I also, with economic development, advanced manufacturing, and I know we have a lot of our apprenticeship programs are in construction, but we also have advanced manufacturing and those things too, that all need to be looked at. So I mean, just that word of registered apprenticeship in there, and then we're making sure that they are included in these things. And when I read this, that is registered apprenticeship, but yet it's not mentioned.
Right. Yeah, and I think for one of the conversations has been, how does this money get used? And then the difficult thing for us right now is acquainting our WIA staff, our directors, and our case managers, and understanding how some of those dollars can be utilized, because we get, like everything else in life, we get just a little bit pigeonholed in what are the services. So this is really going to be a statement of change and a real paradigm shift for our regions. And so I can't agree with you more that registered apprenticeship conversations need to be put right out there in the front, you know, with the boards as they're entertaining how to do their budgets. Most definitely.
We're the ones that invented this. I mean, you guys are kind of stealing our thunder here. We've been doing this apprenticeship for 120 years to fund the steam fitters. But also I want to state out, which he just kind of mentioned also, in this time right now we're encouraging our members for continuing education. Now I don't know if there's anything in there in the writing to say, okay, we're encouraging, and we're doing continuing education ourselves. We are, self-funding our continuing education, maybe a med gas license, a plumbing license, down the line, to try to help members secure more certifications to put them to work faster. And so I didn't know if there was a possibility to get in there some of the money for grants for continuing education also.
That's really kind of where these approved plans have gone. But just as a reminder, under the incumbent worker waiver and for Department of Labor with dislocated workers, we have to be ensuring that we're really working with those employers who may be at a threat of either a mass layoff and or already have laid folks off. And what can we do to gel up that particular business to get them back in and part of the viable economy? So it is how we looked at our application. It is the application that many other states are using also for incumbent waiver. There needs to be some, that's awful, isn't it? There needs to be some threat of, and as I made a comment, I always use the OSHA crane operators for our smallest company. OSHA changed the rules, and this company had been going along for many, many years with crane operators. They were very concerned that the men that they had had working for them for several years would no longer meet that level of certification. And so if I can't assist them with that level of certification, I'm going to need to lay them off. And so what we did was assist them in creating that plan to meet those new OSHA standards. And then it becomes up to that employer to move that individual through that certification. And not all of them made it. So that's really how those employer plans are very much dictated. It's most definitely assuring that they continue to be viable.
I move that the board endorse all three waiver requests.
Second.
Second.
This is Francis Jenna. I'd like to move that we split off the waiver request for the formula funds and the state rapid response funds.
You're splitting off, in other words, the common measures, is that what you're doing?
No, splitting off the dislocated worker formula funds and the state rapid response funds for incumbent worker training waiver. The other two can ride together.
Do you need a separate vote on each waiver?
Well, that, I was thinking,
The current motion is for all three waivers to be
Yes.
approved. Yeah, I'll accept the friendly amendment.
okay,
Ms. Francis, what was that?
we're gonna vote on each one separately. All three waivers,
Okay.
okay? So, the first one we have,
Do we have some discussion?
with each one, we will have a discussion.
Very good.
Okay, number one that we received was the waiver request for the provision of incentive funds for local regions. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
There's one, we have a second. Okay, any discussion?
Can you just go down, so Lisa can give the names here.
Oh, we don't have to go back and do another motion? Okay. So we have our motion, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number two was common measures and the integrated performance waiver.
So
Any
moved.
discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Motion carries. Number three is waiver for request to use dislocated worker formula funds and state rapid response funds for incumbent worker training. Discussion.
Ms. Francis, I would feel a lot more comfortable if we included apprenticeship training in that language.
All right.
That's my concern is that it told me it's in there, at least what I heard was that that was in there, but I don't see it anywhere, and I'd feel a lot more comfortable if that was in there, if it was in the actual language.
Unfortunately, we have to post these for a month, and our time will run out as an opportunity to use the funds if we postpone the public comment. So, we can assure you that we will actually use that in.
We can demonstrate, Francis, that we will share with you our communications with the RWebs and our suggestions on apprenticeship when we communicate the waiver out.
Would be glad to do that.
Will there be some tracking? How will this be tracked? Will you report out on this and have some tracking there?
Yes, each one of the employers, each one of their workers will actually be placed into our data management system so that we can actually chart the success of their training and how many we've got, how the money has been utilized, so that we can actually visit and work more in an opportune way with our economic development partners, as well as our RWeb. So we did quite a bit of that tracking as far as demographics and number of folks, and training providers, and the success of through the demonstration project. And it is our intent to continue to use that particular application and continue to track those various things that we did through the project.
Have to report out to the board?
We certainly can, absolutely.
Okay, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if I had a follow-up on that with report out to the board as to how those funds specifically were being used in maybe some kind of written report on this.
I would be glad to ensure that that will happen.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
That makes me happy. we'll come out with.
All right? There no other discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Now, we are looking at a break for lunch, and then we'll come back in and see the video while we eat.